was just hitting you up on the other line.
What do you mean?
I was literally dialing you.
How many lines you got over there, bro?
Dude, keeping it pretty busy, man. I got like six under the radar podcasts with other guests I haven't even told you about.
Wow, that's pretty impressive, man. I have one with my brother that we've never aired. My brother,
moment, huh?
Yeah, my brother is actually driving to Florida right now to conquer the ride across Florida.
I thought he gave that up.
I know. I thought he did too.
Your brother is he's kind of an enigma.
Oh,
he's such an interesting character, though. We should probably have him on the cast, actually.
Oh yeah, man. I'd love to discuss his minimal lifestyle. He's
and what it's like to video and spectate watching your family member do an Ironman.
Yeah. I think let's do it. We
could stay true and never release it, but we should definitely do it.
Well, that's true too. He's actually going to be here on Sunday on his way back through, I think.
Oh, nice.
So maybe that's something we can look at.
I like
potential. Also, we've just discussed that we're going to get some more age groupers on here.
Yes.
And just talk about what's going on with them.
Yeah, if you're interested in coming on and sharing your story or just chatting it up, or maybe even having on just to ask some general questions. We've had a couple people say that we should do like a Facebook Live thing, and maybe we'll do that once you and I are in the same vicinity.
Yeah.
Do something like that. But if you're interested in coming on and just talking age group stuff, hit us up an email, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of good stuff when we're in the same vicinity. We've got a ton of stuff on our plate that we want to do, and that's going to be exciting. So before we get started, just because I went back to the iTunes today and looked, and I want to read a couple quick reviews if you wouldn't mind.
No, man, go for it. It's your world.
That's a good point. This from Mr. Fahrenheit. He says, I've listened to several episodes now and really enjoy the practical advice offered. Quality content. Thanks, Mr. Fahrenheit. This from Tread Softly. He says, Mike and Robbie are friends, and you can be one of their friends too. This podcast is for triathletes of all levels who want to be part friendly conversation about sport, primarily about training. I live in a semi-rural area and train solo. My wife is not interested in my CTL and FTPs, and neither are my coworkers. Robbie and Mike are interested and interesting. So to have a tri conversation, I listen to their podcast. Their chill nature, is casual conversation make me feel connected. And that's about it. But maybe we'll just have a review of the week or something like that, and figure out something to get them. Again, so if you know anybody that wants to be on the podcast as a age grouper that has some things going on or a good story or whatever, we're in. Email us at crushingiron@gmail.com.
I like it.
You do?
I do.
All right, man. Well, today we want to talk about something that is a continual part of triathlon. Is that correct?
I would say it's a continual part of life.
Continual part of life, yeah, that's good. And it's often overlooked.
Oh, God. I think it's actually, it's... Because you can put it in the same bucket as kind of the taper. And so we're going to talk about recovery today. And it's actually really very, very timely. You and I are always kind of on the same wavelength. We we don't have to say much, but we always kind of know what the other one's thinking. But I've had in the last 24, 48 hours, 2 athletes that I work with, and we've talked about that, and we talked about nailing recovery. And actually, at the job I have now, we are doing a seminar on recovery coming up this week. For athletes. And so there's some of the most difficult and the biggest thing I want to cover today is ways to recover, signs you need to recover, and adapting your training around recovery. Because that's the most difficult part. Traditionally speaking, you always see athletes build a 3 weeks up and a 1 week kind of recovery week.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is like depending on your body, your life circumstances, there's so many factors that might be too long, that might be too short, and there's just a million different factors taken into consideration. And for one of my athletes, Matthew Dickinson lives in Minnesota. We've been kind of playing around with his recovery cycle, because they don't have to be a week. And I think it's a common misconception is that recovery has to be a day off and it has to be a week long. And those just aren't the case. And so I'll give his cycle an example first, then we'll kind of go into some ways to recover and then some signs. But
okay, so what's he training for? Anything specific?
He's doing Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, doing Wisconsin, and he's got kids and a really demanding job. He just got a promotion. Just incredibly busy, and he has a lot of high goals. He's what I like to call a very high-octane athlete. When he's going, he's full throttle, fifth gear. Okay. And so it's kind of hard to rein in people like that, even though you can prescribe certain workouts, and he's very good at adhering to them. But some people just adapt differently, and he's been sick a lot this off season. And he just got back from spring break, and so what I've recently done is I've put him on kind of a 4 days on, 1 day off cycle. Okay. Because when we hit it hard for 4 days, and then that 1 day off, and then maybe an easy day after that gives him time to hit it hard for 4 days and then recover. And that seems to be working out. He sent me an email or texted me last night and said that he was feeling incredible and ready to go. And so it's and that's the other one of the benefits of having a coach as well, is that people need to, your coach, especially being that they're objective, has to be able to adapt to you. And the reason and the signs and the warning signs of having someone else do it is what I'll talk about now. And the main one is you as a person. And they have apps now for this for literally everything. Mm-hmm. Like tracking your heart rate, tracking training fatigue, whatever. Generally speaking, the best indicator I've ever had working with athletes is attitude and mentality. And
they have an app for that?
You and I have talked about it for a long time, but maybe when we move back we can work on the MEPS app. Yeah. But when you find yourself over fatigued, grumpy, irritable, and contrary to popular belief, not sleeping well is usually a sign of overtraining. Like people say that, obviously sleep begets sleep, but even if you're overtired, it's actually harder to sleep, which is really common with people who have busy 9-to-5 jobs and are, get home and then, rear out a trainer session, 8 o'clock at night, get off at 9:30 and try to go to bed at 10. It just ain't happening, mm-hmm. And so, and that's, or workouts that are cut short or skipped. And those are always signs to me that you're mentally, emotionally, and then obviously physically fatigued.
Well, yeah. And, okay. I don't want to go into what I was thinking, but go ahead.
You don't want to go into, where were you headed? I'll tell you if it's a stop or go.
You said something a few podcasts ago that really kind of hit home with me about you recognized that you were drinking too much coffee at mm-hmm. one point, and it hit me hard because I had been too. I mean, I'd been on the road a lot, and I'd just been not. It's easy to just reach for coffee. It kind of just keeps you going, and you kind of feel like it's no calories or whatever, and keep flying. But I could sense over time that my body was starting to break down, and I think that's really what's happened to me over the last few days. I've kind of laid off it, and I can literally feel my flexibility a little bit, like my muscles relaxing a little bit. It like kind of, I'm really in tune with that kind of stuff. So I often wonder if that sleep part and the recovery part is because of maybe excess caffeine sometimes in diets.
I mean, I can't. I got to be honest. I'm drinking a cup right now.
Yeah.
But But I'm gonna get a run in here in a little bit, and then I gotta pick up Hayden. And right now for me, it's funny. It's like I'm having to go. Like for my recovery, I'm going strictly on like my mental and emotional feel because physically, I mean, I can handle. I did 19 and a half miles last Sunday, and I woke up Monday, and physically I felt good. But I had nothing in the tank mentally. And of course, we're not getting a lot of sleep. And I was like, would I be doing too much damage or just give me another day? And I was like, I'm just going to give myself one more day. I'm going to take Monday off. And then I ran yesterday and had one of my better speed sessions of the year. And so it's just a fine line, and it's I think it's recognizing within yourself your own warning signs. Like I have an athlete in Maryland who she asked me when I planned her week this week, she was like, what's with the day off on Tuesday? And I was like, well, I think you're going to need it because Tuesdays off unless you need them are actually pretty pretty odd. Most people schedule like on a Saturday or Sunday or like a Monday off. But anyway, I was like, yeah, I think you're going to need it. And she texted me on, I don't know, like maybe Monday midday. And she was like, well, you were right. And like I was basically a day late. No, I mean not really late, but she was like, I'm irritable, I'm kind of grumpy, and I'm like, and I'm feeling like I get these like sugar cravings, and like, and that's your body like craving for like a stimulus that you wouldn't ordinarily crave because your body's like, it's just like caffeine. And sugar and caffeine I kind of put in the same box. Caffeine to an extent is good for you and it has positive effects. Same with a little bit of sugar. Like for me on a run, I'll use a little bit of flat Coke, but do I drink Coke all day? No. And so, but it's your body, I think your body it's same with like a craving for like a bad meal. It's your body, like discipline takes energy and it takes focus and it takes dedication. And the more tired and fatigued you become, the more weaker you become. Not just physically, and everybody knows this, it's you become more weak and susceptible to, this may sound weird, but to temptation, the more tired and fatigued you are. You're more likely to skip a workout. Sense. Yeah, you're more tired to skip a workout, and you're more apt to eat like crap. Because your body's like, I need something. Like, and you can't do anything to give me that release and to give you those endorphin releases. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sit in a chair and I'm gonna eat a pizza.
Bingo.
So you're basically, bingo. Like that's the best way, but that's what we do. And so, like for her, she was like, but it was great because she recognized that, I think she had texted me exactly and said, need a day off. You were right. I'm grumpy. And when I do that, my drug of choice is sugar, and the spiral continues, and so it's great if you know those things, but most people don't, they're not really aware of them or they just don't care enough to kind of keep track. But from a sleep standpoint and recovery standpoint, that's kind of the first thing to go is your loss of motivation. And you put off the workout. If you find yourself putting off a workout more than once throughout the course of the day, it's time for a day off.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because
or a nap.
Or a nap. Yeah, exactly. If you can squeeze in a nap for sure. So sleep is one of those things that in order to recover, you just have to have. It is the most underrated recovery tool on the market. And it's free. And it affects your life positive in all kinds of ways. Like people, and we talked about this in the previous podcast about stress, is your body has no idea whether you ran 4 miles hard, whether you worked out in the gym really hard, or you're sitting at work for 6 hours afraid you're going to lose your job. All of that stress to your body, it doesn't have a filter that puts it in a running box, in a weightlifting box, in a life stress box. Stress is stress. And
man, I heard something the other day that I think would be interesting to talk about at some point. Well, we could just like that stress. I was listening to this conversation between two guys on a podcast at some point, and they were talking about how fascia has memory cells in it. Like So, in other words, like if you're stressed out, a lot of times that'll go into your fascia. Like if you're running, your legs are stressed because of running, whatever. They have this. So we all know what fascia, like tight, that's what we talked about, foam rolling and everything and breaking that stuff up. So I wonder if like if you're really, like your legs are really tight and like you said, you're going through a day where you're worried about losing your job or whatever like that, that stress just sort of builds up and everything's just not flowing through your body, period. And it can kind of compound the issue. I just thought it was a really interesting concept that they talk about how that stuff is retained in your fascia.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, it's you. I mean, when you're stressed, you tense up. I mean, it's human nature, and I don't feel like why should that be any different with the rest of your body? When people say you're holding on to a lot of stress, I mean, you can go in and get a massage, and they can be, man, are you stressed? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, I can tell. And that's a direct correlation between your muscles, your body, and your body language and the stress you're going under. Like people forget like that everything is connected, and that's why sleep and minimal life stress and sleep are the two biggest mitigating factors between success with any athletic endeavor. And that's why it's always important when I talk to athletes who come on board about training for something like an Ironman, that they have family support, that they have, the least amount of stress possible, in order to achieve whatever goal it is they have. Because those are two factors that are just widely, overlooked. And if people like have like a badge of honor of like, I only sleep like 4 hours a night, I'm so busy. I'm like, you're probably busy doing nothing, or you're wasting at least 4 hours a day. If you were focused and rested, you could probably have a 20 or 30 hour work week, like they tell you to do these days.
Exactly.
It's like have a 30-hour work week and get it done and focus and be done and move on with your day. And so obviously, nutrition and sleep are two big ones. Understanding and being able to differentiate between stresses in your life and taking care of yourself on a kind of a proactive approach. And I was talking about this with two of my employees today, is that one of the hardest things for people to wrap their mind around is accepting the long-term vision of what they're trying to accomplish. Because for most athletes, 9 out of 10, and I have tons of them, that taking a day off is literally excruciating for them because they're afraid they're going to lose it all, or they're afraid that somebody else is going to get faster. But in order to train hard, you have to adapt and recover even harder, or you're just going to simply be the same, which is really common in triathlon. People are just stuck at the same time. They do the same things all over again. People always want more. They want more and more and more. And more isn't always better. And if you're not recovering, if you're not sleeping right, you're not eating right, you're not taking rest days, you're not building recovery, either A, not building recovery into your training cycle, you don't have a coach to build it in for you, or you're not paying attention to like your training peaks numbers, if you even have them put in correctly, to know like where your fatigue level is. And sure signs are not being able to hit your numbers in a workout, that you should. That's for me a sure sign it's time to either take a whole day off or just a super easy day with literally no expectations, just an easy ride or a swim, a little bit of active recovery, because everybody wants it now. It's like, well, if I can't run today, or I can't ride today, or I can't swim today, like, what am I doing? Well, recover hard, train hard, recover harder. And people don't like that part because there's nothing at the moment, there's nothing to show for it. However, on race day is everything to show for it. Mm-hmm. You can't post your recovery days on Strava. You can't post but it's just a hard choice to make. And so it's always easier for, at least if you're not an experienced, seasoned athlete that's very well in tune with their body, that can make that choice subjectively to take a day off, is why having a coach or somebody I talk to say, hey man, hey lady, take a day off.
Yeah.
It's time, because a 1 day off is nothing. A week off, nah. But more than 1 week off because of a niggle or a strain that turned into an injury, or something like that, or a full blown illness. Um, it happens all too often, and it happens for the most part because people aren't willing to give themselves a day, and then it turns into a week or a month.
Yeah, let me talk about something that I think also is a hugely underrated part of active recovery throughout the training cycle, and I know that I'm kind of bro science on a lot of this stuff, but my thing about hydration, I've always just been curious about it because if you think about especially at Ironman training levels, about the amount of fluids we put in our body while we're running or riding or whatever versus how much is lost. I mean, I don't have that science part down, but I mean, you got to get off that bike or off that run completely depleted, every time, right? I mean, like over the course of 6 or 8 months of training like that, I would just think that slowly you just, lose that battle of balance and hydration. Now, I don't know where you're at on this. I know I talk about it a lot. I just think it's a huge, huge piece of the puzzle because
nobody hydrates enough.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, I had Kate Lopez, if you're listening, drink some water. She was like, I walk around in a state of like perpetual dehydration, and I was like, welcome to America. It's like, and coffee is great, but it's not like chugging down water. If anything, it helps.
Diuretic.
It helps as a diuretic, to kind of flush things out. But like people just don't drink enough water. They don't drink enough throughout the day, and people forget of how much of your body is made of water and how much of your muscles are made of water. It's like you need it to function, and you can't expect to drive your car with no gas and no oil, yet we do the same thing to ourselves, not hydrating enough, and it makes you tired. It makes you can't clear waste like you need to, and you can't perform like you need to. And it's something that it's one of those free hydrating and sleep, two things that are free that will help every aspect of your life, not just including training, that people just neglect for the sake of like some fancy sports drink or another cup of coffee or a Shasta or whatever you want to drink. Like, just drink some water, and pound it. And if you have to pee a lot, then good for you. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Dehydration is one of those things, and I will. This is not really on the recovery topic, but I will address it because you see it. I see it all the time at triathlon and just regular any kind of athletic event. Is if you're out there and you think that chugging gallons of water the day before an event is good for you, you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my athletes this: 4 days 3 and 4 before the race, and drink as much water as you can. Hydrate your body to an extent. If there's time to like expel any kind of toxins or whatever, now is the time to get rid of them. But just load up your body as much as you possibly can with water. And then days 2 and day 1 before the race, drink a little bit of water, if any at all, but only drink sports drink. Because your body is already saturated with water. You've already hydrated enough. If you keep drinking water, what you're going to do is you're basically going to end up not dehydrated, but you're basically going to continue to deplete the nutrient stores and the mineral stores you've established in your body, and will actually be weaker on race day. But by having that baseline of water, of hydration in your body, what you do on 3 and 4, what you do on days 2 and 1 are saturated with carbs, sugar, sodium, electrolytes, and you're basically stocking it. So you want to build kind of your hydration warehouse on 3 and 4, and then day 1 and 2, you want to stock it full instead of ship stuff out. So think of it that way. But it's another thing that people make a lot of common mistakes with. Carry around a water jug like it's like a badge of honor. Like, look how hydrated I am. Like, you're just going to continue to pee, and you're going to be depleted on race day.
Yeah. I mean, that's my thing, I think, is it's like, I always look at that hydration thing about, because people are always focused on their weight going into a race and everything like that. And I contend on a lot of levels that, you know, I try to hit my target weight almost at the end of a race, or, you know what I mean? It's like I feel like I need to be a little bit like a bear in hibernation going into that thing with some extra stores.
No, you have to. I mean, you have to have extra fat stores, and you're going to be carrying a lot of extra water weight, because if you're even eating and drinking normally like you would through a normal training cycle, you're not sweating enough. Like a lot of your race weight that people call it, the weeks leading up to a race, is so inaccurate because you really just aren't holding on to a lot of water because you're working out and sweating so much. So it's not really your true weight. But that's why it's fine and nothing to stress out about if you put on an extra, 2 or 3, quote unquote pounds. Basically, just look at it as you're like have an internal camelback,
Yeah.
that you can use off of when you race. But again, that's probably another topic for another day. But I wanted to touch on it quickly since you brought it up.
Yeah, I just think it's one of those things that seems kind of obvious, but to me, it's always made sense. And that long-term hydration, that's why I'm saying, yeah, you can't just make up for it in a day or two. You have to keep it focused throughout and try to keep those levels of hydration solid, and because you're not going to just make up for it in your taper.
No.
In 1 or 2 days, you can't. You just can't hold it. It can't seep into the cells like I like to talk about. And so, last night, just for example, and I've been sore all week, and I think it had a lot to do with that coffee intake and dehydration actually. And I did a workout yesterday, and it was not good. It didn't bum me out or anything. I kind of just felt like, man, something's off. I didn't feel like I was out of shape. I just felt like, you ever get that feeling where you're just sore and stiff and
Oh yeah, man.
you know what I mean? It's not like I'm like, I don't feel like I'm that out of shape. I just feel like something internally to my body is not right. And I kind of concluded that it might be hydration. So last night I drank like 4 or 5 or 6 glasses of water within a couple hours, and I actually loosened up, and that's when I felt like, man, I think that there's something to this. It's obvious, but when you get water into your muscles, it makes sense that they're going to be more limber, not as tight and cricky and whatever. So anyway, that's just
and you got moving, and you got it moving around.
Yeah, exactly.
The example I was trying to tell people is like, if you ever go to the YMCA, you know which balls have been sitting there the longest because they're the flattest.
Oh yeah.
And they have like no bounce, and they have no spring. And you can always tell the ones that are just used or been played with like that morning. You don't want the one that's been sitting there for 2 weeks. You want the one that they just played with. And same with your body. It's like you want your body craves that, and to an extent, it craves the inflammation response. And the longer you sit it on a shelf or sit in a chair without moving, the more your body's going to be just fine. Kind of winding itself up, and that way when you go out for it's like when you travel all day in a car, the next day you're sore. You literally didn't do anything. You sat in a car all day, but yet you're super stiff, and if you went to go run, it would feel terrible, like you had dead legs. But you're like, oh, I've been sitting all day, I should feel great. No, your body just got sedentary, and it got used to just basically being wound up tight and sitting. You didn't have any circulation. You definitely didn't hydrate enough, more than likely. And it's the same thing. It happens every day too for people who have desk jobs or have to drive a lot. Is that they just negate that aspect of it and then expect to drive around all day from business to business and then hop on the treadmill at 5:30 and expect to have spring in their legs. It's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Anything else, man?
Recovery wise, I always say, err on the side of caution. Treat your body like you want to use it for forever, not just use it for this season. The season I guess I'll end it with this. Your life cycle as an athlete, as a runner, as a swimmer, as a cyclist, as a triathlete, whatever it is, doesn't end on the day your A race happens. It extends as long as you want. And they talk about they're talking about this a lot in the NBA right now with resting players and appeasing the fans and whatever. And I'm not really, I don't have a horse in that race, but I get it. I get it from a performance standpoint, but I get it from a longevity standpoint. You can think about today in this race in this season, and everything ends with Ironman this or my A race. It all ends that day. Well, unless you're going to quit, then no, it doesn't end. And so, unless you plan on having an apex of your athletic ability and achievement at Ironman whatever, then treat your body like you want to continue to use it and not like a carnival or a one-night stand that you're just going to get rid of the next day.
I like it, man. That's good stuff.
You got it.
Hang on for a second after this, and let's just say goodbye. And thank you for everyone for checking into the Crushing Iron podcast. Email us at crushingiron@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out our training plans on Training Peaks. You can search Crushing Iron. And
if you have any questions, about any of those, I got another question this week. Great questions about Peter Hamilton. You can email me at c26coach@gmail.com.
Sounds like a plan, man. All right.
Have a good week.
Yeah, you too, bud.